In the vast expanse of space, they say no one can hear you scream, but they never mentioned anything about laughter. The Galactic Council's chambers erupted in mockery when Earth's ambassador announced our planet's intention to join the Interstellar Defense Force. Representatives from 1,000 advanced civilizations, each with centuries of space warfare experience, couldn't contain their amusement at what they saw as primitive apes trying to play soldier. "Your species hasn't even mastered faster-than-light travel," sneered the Xylaxian delegate, his crystalline form shimmering with disdain. "What could you possibly contribute to the defense of the galaxy?" But those aliens didn't understand what made humans different. While they had evolved in peaceful gardens or developed in sterile laboratories, we had forged ourselves in the crucible of Earth's harshest environments. From scorching deserts to frozen tundras, humanity had not just survived, we had thrived. I remember standing there in that chamber, serving as Earth's military attaché. The weight of my combat medals felt heavy against my chest as I watched our ambassador maintain her composure. She didn't need to defend our species with words. Soon enough, they would all understand. 3 months later, the swarm attacked. These silicon-based entities had consumed 12 solar systems in the past decade alone. The Galactic Council's mighty fleets, with all their advanced technology, struggled to hold the line. Their synthetic soldiers, programmed for perfect efficiency, couldn't adapt to the swarm's chaos. That's when Earth's first battalion arrived at the frontier. We didn't bring the biggest ships or the most advanced weapons. What we brought was something the galaxy had forgotten: the unpredictable, unbreakable human spirit. I watched from the command center as our troops deployed. The alien commanders expected us to follow their precise battle formations, their carefully calculated strategies. Instead, they witnessed something that made their multiple hearts skip a beat: humans fighting like humans. Our soldiers scaled impossible cliffs to flank swarm positions. They used primitive smoke signals when the enemy jammed communications. They turned broken spacecraft into improvised fortresses. One squad even commandeered a damaged swarm vessel, something previously thought impossible, and flew it straight into an enemy hive ship. "How?" demanded the Xylaxian general, his crystalline form now clouded with confusion. "Your technology is inferior. Your numbers are smaller. This defies all military logic." I smiled, remembering the ancient battles that shaped our history, from prehistoric tribes outsmarting larger predators to modern special forces achieving the impossible. "That's exactly why we're winning," I replied. "We don't rely on logic alone. We have something more powerful: imagination, instinct, and the stubborn refusal to accept defeat." The turning point came during the Battle of Proxima Centauri. The swarm had surrounded the colony, and the Galactic Council's forces were retreating. But Earth's 7th Regiment didn't get that memo, or maybe they just chose to ignore it. What happened next would be written in the history books of 1,000 worlds. But that story deserves its own telling. For now, let's just say that the laughter in the Galactic Council has been replaced by a different sound: the sound of aliens asking, sometimes begging, for human soldiers to protect their worlds. They finally understood what we had known all along: technology alone doesn't win wars. The most powerful weapon in the universe isn't a plasma cannon or a quantum torpedo. It's the human spirit, forged in millions of years of struggle, carrying the combined legacy of every warrior who ever picked up a weapon to protect their home. And now, that spirit was taking its first steps into the stars, teaching the galaxy a lesson they wouldn't soon forget. The real question is, are they ready for what comes next? The Battle of Proxima Centauri began like any other, with chaos and confusion. The swarm had encircled the colony's main defensive platforms, their biomechanical ships forming a web of destruction that seemed impossible to penetrate. The Galactic Council's fleet had already withdrawn to their designated fallback positions, citing tactical necessity in their retreat orders. But Colonel Sarah Chen of Earth's 7th Regiment had other ideas. I can still picture her face on the command screen, that familiar glint in her eyes that every human warrior throughout history would recognize, the look of someone who had just figured out how to do the impossible. "Sir," she said, her voice calm despite the explosions visible in her background, "request permission to attempt Protocol Zeus. The alien commanders present in the command center turned all their sensory organs toward me, puzzled by this unfamiliar term. They had memorized every standard military protocol in the galaxy, but this was something new, something human. Protocol Zeus wasn't in any official military handbook. It was born in a late-night discussion over coffee and combat rations, inspired by ancient Earth mythology and modern desperation. The plan was as brilliant as it was insane, exactly the kind of strategy that made humans so unpredictable. The 7th Regiment split into 3 groups. The first group, led by Chen herself, deliberately allowed their ships to be captured by the swarm's organic tether beams. The second group appeared to panic and flee, drawing away a portion of the enemy forces. The third group seemed to malfunction, their ships drifting dead in space. The alien commanders watched in horror, believing they were witnessing the complete dissolution of a human military unit. "Your soldiers have lost their minds," the Arthesian strategic director chittered, his mandibles clicking in distress. "They've broken formation, violated every principle of space combat doctrine." I kept my eyes fixed on the tactical display, counting down in my head. 3, 2, 1. That's when Protocol Zeus revealed its true nature. The captured ships triggered electromagnetic pulses from within the swarm's formation, temporarily disrupting their biological neural networks. The retreating group reversed course at maximum burn, their ships modified to carry twice the standard payload of antimatter warheads. And those dead ships? They power cycled their cores in perfect sequence, creating a resonance wave that shattered the swarm's hive mind coordination. But the true genius of Protocol Zeus wasn't in its technical execution. It was in understanding something fundamental about combat that the advanced races had forgotten: the power of appearing weak when you are strong, of turning an enemy's assumptions into weapons. The swarm, for all its computational power, couldn't process the concept of deliberate failure as a strategy. They had never encountered a species willing to appear foolish, damaged, or cowardly as part of a larger plan. Their perfect efficiency was their perfect weakness. As we watched the battle unfold, I noticed the alien commander's expressions changing. The Zalaxian's crystalline form vibrated with new frequencies. The Arthesian's antennae twitched in what I later learned was their species' expression of awe, and even the normally stoic Quantum Collective's representatives showed signs of mathematical excitement in their energy patterns. But our victory at Proxima Centauri came with a price, as all victories do, and it taught us something crucial about our new place in the galaxy. The swarm wasn't just another enemy to be defeated. It was a test of humanity's readiness to step onto the galactic stage. As the dust settled and the damage reports began flowing in, we discovered something that would change the course of the war, something in the wreckage of the swarm ships that nobody, not even our most optimistic scientists, had expected to find. But that discovery and its implications would have to wait. Because the swarm was already adapting, learning, evolving, and humanity would need more than just one clever protocol to face what was coming next. The discovery within the swarm wreckage was both fascinating and terrifying. Hidden beneath layers of biomechanical tissue, we found what appeared to be human DNA markers, not just random sequences, but specific patterns that suggested the swarm had been studying us long before we reached the stars. They hadn't attacked us directly on Earth because they'd been analyzing us, learning about the very qualities that made us dangerous. Lieutenant Chen's voice crackled over the secure channel during the debriefing. "They're afraid of us," she said, her words carrying the weight of revelation. "Not our weapons or our ships, but our unpredictability. They've been watching us fight each other for centuries, trying to understand how we can be so innovative in combat." The Galactic Council called an emergency session. This time, there was no laughter in the chamber. The Arthesian strategic director presented evidence that the swarm had begun incorporating human tactical patterns into their attack strategies. They were learning, adapting, becoming more unpredictable themselves. "You've changed the nature of our enemy," accused the Quantum Collective's representative, their energy form pulsing with concern. The swarm was predictable, mathematical. Now they're becoming human. But they were missing the point. The swarm might copy our tactics, but they couldn't replicate the one thing that made humans truly dangerous: our ability to care. to fight not just for survival, but for each other. The bond between soldiers that turned ordinary people into heroes. We saw this firsthand during the defense of Alpha Centauri. The swarm attacked with new formations, using feints and false retreats they'd learned from studying us. But when Private Rodriguez's unit was cornered in the asteroid belt, we witnessed something the swarm could never duplicate. Without orders, 3 other squads broke formation to rescue their trapped comrades. The alien commanders were baffled. It was tactically unsound, risking many to save a few. But they watched in amazement as this tactical error turned into an unexpected advantage. The swarm, attempting to predict our logical response, had positioned their forces to exploit our retreat. Instead, they found themselves caught in a crossfire of their own making. But our greatest challenge lay ahead. The swarm had begun targeting something they'd identified as humanity's weakness: our emotional connections. They weren't just destroying colonies anymore. They were taking hostages, creating scenarios that would test our dedication to leaving no one behind. That's when we received the distress call from Haven Colony. The swarm had surrounded the settlement, holding over 10,000 civilians hostage. Their message was clear: withdraw all human forces from the Galactic Defense Fleet or watch Haven burn. The Galactic Council advised compliance. The Xylaxian military calculated a 99.97% casualty rate for any rescue attempt. Even our most experienced commanders admitted it looked impossible. The swarm had practically written the scenario using our own tactical databases. They knew exactly how we would try to save those people. Or so they thought. As I stood in the command center, watching the deadline approach, I received a message from Earth. Our response to the swarm's ultimatum wouldn't come from a military protocol or a strategic directive. It would come from something buried deep in human history. A mission so audacious that even our own allies thought we lost our minds. We called it Operation Thermopylae, and it would either be remembered as humanity's finest hour or our most costly mistake. As the plan unfolded, I realized that everything, the laughter in the council chamber, the victory at Proxima Centauri, even the swarm's adaptation to our tactics, had led to this moment. What happened next would prove once and for all what the swarm had failed to understand about humanity. Sometimes the most human thing to do is the thing that makes the least sense. Operation Thermopylae began with a surrender, or at least what looked like one. Every human ship in the sector powered down their weapons and began broadcasting defeat signals. The Galactic Council watched in disbelief as Earth's most experienced combat units appeared to give up without firing a shot. The swarm, anticipating deception, held their positions around Haven Colony. They had studied enough human history to know we rarely surrendered, even in hopeless situations. Their biomechanical sensors swept our ships for signs of hidden weapons or cloaked reinforcements. They found nothing, because they were looking in the wrong place. While the swarm focused on our ships, they missed the real Operation Thermopylae unfolding beneath their feet. For 3 months prior, Earth's deep space construction crews had been secretly building something inside Haven Colony's massive ice mines. Not weapons or ships, but a network of quantum-linked tunnels, inspired by Earth's ancient underground resistance movements. The real genius of the plan came from an unexpected source: our colony's children. During routine evacuation drills, they had discovered that the swarm's neural network couldn't track multiple small targets moving through the ice caves. Their game of hide and seek had revealed a crucial weakness in the enemy's perception. Sometimes the best military intelligence comes from the most unlikely sources. Lieutenant Chen had said during the operation briefing, "While we were thinking like soldiers, our kids were thinking like kids." But just as we initiated the evacuation through the quantum tunnels, something unexpected happened. The swarm launched a new type of attack, not against our ships or the colony, but against their own captured human hostages. They had begun forcibly integrating human neural patterns into their hive mind. We watched in horror as the first transformed humans emerged, their eyes glowing with the same eerie bioluminescence as the swarm. They weren't just copies or drones. They were something entirely new. The swarm had discovered how to hybridize their consciousness with human minds, creating beings with both human creativity and their hive mind efficiency. They're not trying to defeat us anymore. The Arthesian strategic director realized, his mandibles quivering. They're trying to become us. This changed everything. The quantum tunnels were already active, evacuating thousands of colonists. But now we face an impossible choice. The hybrid humans were still technically alive, possibly even conscious inside the swarm's control. Any action we took to stop them would mean killing our own people. That's when we intercepted a transmission that chilled even the most hardened veterans. It was a message, broadcast on all frequencies, in perfect human speech. Why fight us when you can join us? Evolution demands unity. Resistance is not just futile, it's illogical. The voice belonged to Dr. Sarah Chen, Lieutenant Chen's mother. She had been the colony's chief scientist, and now she stood transformed among the hybrids. Her brilliant mind merged with the swarm's collective consciousness. Lieutenant Chen's voice came over the command channel, steady despite the revelation. "Permission to modify Operation Thermopyle, sir. I have an idea, but you're not going to like it." She was right. I didn't like it, but as I listened to her plan, I realized it was exactly the kind of impossible, irrational, completely human solution that had saved us so many times before. The kind of plan that proved why humans would always have an edge over both the logical aliens and the adaptive swarm. Because sometimes, the most powerful weapon isn't the ability to think like your enemy, it's the ability to think like yourself. Lieutenant Chen's plan was beautiful in its simplicity, born from a daughter's understanding of her mother's work. Dr. Chen hadn't just been studying the swarm, she had been developing a way to communicate with them. The neural integration wasn't just a weapon, it was a bridge, and bridges could be crossed in both directions. "The swarm thinks they've figured out how to use our creativity," Lieutenant Chen explained, her voice tight with emotion. "But they don't understand that human imagination isn't just about thinking outside the box. Sometimes it's about choosing to stay inside it, even when every logical argument says to leave." We modified Operation Thermopyle on the fly. While the evacuation continued through the quantum tunnels, Chen led a small team of volunteers directly toward the hybrid concentration. Each volunteer carried a specially modified neural transmitter, designed to broadcast a single, powerful human emotion, not fear or anger, but something the swarm had never encountered in all their centuries of conquest. Homesickness, the profound, almost painful longing for home that every human spacer knows. The feeling that had driven us to recreate Earth's environments in every colony we built, to paint murals of blue skies on space station ceilings, to grow trees in hydroponic bays just to smell their leaves. The hybrids, still partially human, were the first to feel it. Through them, it spread into the swarm's hive mind like a virus, but instead of destroying, it began connecting. For the first time, the swarm experienced the emotional complexity that made humans so unique, the ability to want two contradictory things at once, to feel both strong and vulnerable, to be both part of a group and intensely individual. Dr. Chen, her hybrid consciousness now a bridge between two species, was the first to understand what was happening. They'd never had a home. Her voice echoed through both human and swarm communication channels. They consume worlds because they're looking for something they can't name. Until now. The effect rippled through the entire swarm consciousness. Their ships began moving in strange patterns, not attacking or retreating, but almost dancing. They were experiencing something entirely new, the conflict between unity and individuality, between efficiency and emotion, between conquest and connection. That's when Lieutenant Chen made her final move. She broadcast a simple message into the hive mind. If you want to understand us, stop trying to control us. Just ask. The response came not in words or data, but in actions. The hybrid humans began separating from the swarm, their neural patterns untangling naturally, like waking from a dream. The massive swarm ships, instead of attacking, formed a protective barrier around Haven Colony, shielding it from the radiation of a nearby solar flare we hadn't even detected yet. But the real surprise came in the aftermath. As the dust settled and the hybrids were reunited with their families, we discovered that the swarm hadn't just learned about humanity, they had evolved. Through their brief connection with human consciousness, they had gained something they never had before: choice. The Galactic Council chambers, once filled with laughter at humanity's expense, now buzzed with intense debate. The swarm requested something unprecedented, territory of their own, not to consume, but to inhabit. They wanted to build rather than destroy, to create rather than absorb. And so the species that had terrified the galaxy for centuries became something new, something that carried a spark of humanity within their collective consciousness. As Dr. Chen, fully human again, explained to the council, they didn't need to be defeated. They just needed to be reminded that evolution doesn't always mean becoming stronger or more efficient. Sometimes it means becoming more complete. But as we celebrated this unexpected victory, a message arrived from Earth that made every human in the galaxy freeze. Our long-range sensors had detected something approaching from beyond the galactic rim, something that made the swarm look like a practice run. And this time, we would need more than just human unpredictability to survive what was coming. The signal from beyond the galactic rim wasn't like anything we'd seen before. It didn't match any known patterns, not biological, mechanical, or even quantum. As we gathered in the council chambers to discuss this new threat, something unprecedented happened. The swarm representatives, still adapting to their newfound individuality, were the first to step forward. We consumed worlds because we feared being consumed ourselves. Their spokesperson communicated their bioluminescent patterns shifting in what we now recognized as determination. Perhaps that's why we were drawn to humanity. You faced your fears differently, not by destroying what frightened you, but by understanding it. The Galactic Council, which had spent centuries trying to contain the swarm, now found themselves at a table where humans and their former enemies worked side by side. Dr. Chen, who had experienced both individual and hive consciousness, became the bridge between old fears and new possibilities. The thing about humans, she explained to the assembled representatives, isn't that we're fearless. It's that we're afraid and we keep going anyway. We're not special because we're stronger or smarter. We're special because we never learned when to quit. Lieutenant Chen, standing beside her mother, added something that made even the logical quantum collective pause in consideration. Maybe that's what's really out there beyond the rim. Not another enemy to fight, but another opportunity to grow. Another chance to prove that the strongest force in the universe isn't weapons or technology or even numbers. It's the power to change. The preparations we made for this new challenge were different from anything in human military history. Instead of building bigger weapons or stronger shields, we created networks of communication and understanding. The swarm's ability to connect consciousness merged with human emotional intelligence, creating something entirely new, a way to reach out rather than defend. As we waited for whatever was approaching from beyond the rim, I couldn't help but remember that first day in the council chambers, when they laughed at Earth's army. They hadn't understood then what made humans special. It wasn't our bodies or our technology or even our tactics. It was our story, the long, stumbling, imperfect journey that had brought us from caves to stars. The Arthesian strategic director, who had once dismissed us as primitive, summed it up perfectly. Humans didn't just teach us new ways to fight. They taught us new ways to live. Dr. Chen's research team made another discovery during those preparation days. The swarm's original purpose, buried deep in their collective memory, hadn't been conquest at all. They had been created as guardians, protectors of something so ancient that even they had forgotten what it was. Perhaps that's why they recognized something familiar in humanity's determination to protect what we loved. And so here we stand at the edge of known space, waiting for whatever comes next. The Galactic Council chambers are quiet now, filled not with laughter or fear, but with anticipation. Humans, aliens, and even our former enemies, all united not by force or necessity, but by choice. They don't laugh at Earth's army anymore. Instead, they tell their children stories about the species that turned enemies into allies, that chose understanding over victory, that faced the unknown with hope instead of fear. They tell them that somewhere out there, beyond the rim of everything we know, something is coming. And when it arrives, it won't find divided species scrambling for survival. It will find something unprecedented in the history of the galaxy. A unified civilization that has learned to be both strong and gentle, both individual and connected, both human and something more. After all, that's what humans do best. We don't just fight wars, we change worlds, even if those worlds belong to someone else, even if changing them means changing ourselves. That's why they don't laugh anymore, because now they know what we've always known. The real power of humanity isn't in our weapons or our wars. It's in our stories. And this story is far from over.